Hi Yvonne, thank you so much for joining us today as part of our Equaliser half-time series. Really appreciate you taking time out of your day. I know you're very busy. The series is about influential women in sport, and obviously you are one of our influential women. So I just thought I'd sort of start off by if you could tell us a bit more about your background in sport and kind of how you got into the industry.
Yes, sure. Good morning, and thank you for having me. So my career in the sports industry spanned probably around 20 years, and it's been quite varied. Although a lot of it has been spent in one particular organisation, which is a charity in Manchester called Greater Sport. I don't work there now, but I would literally say I grew up there. So I started at Greater Sport as a volunteer, as a student actually looking for a work placement for 6 weeks. I stumbled across them by pure chance. At the time, and this will be showing my age, I got in touch with the Commonwealth Games office in Manchester to try and do a work placement with them, but they were very early on, and you didn't have the capacity to sort of take anybody on at that stage. Came across Greater Sport in the yellow pages of all things. Some people will know what that is, and some people will not. Yeah, the rest is, I guess, is history. So I did a work placement there for 6 weeks, loved it. Incredible charity based in Manchester, doing wonderful things right across the whole of Greater Manchester. And what I realised early on was if I wanted a career in sport, this organisation was the heart of it. It worked with Sport England, it worked with national governing bodies, it worked with local authorities, other charities, professional clubs. So I just said, can I volunteer, a day, half a day, whatever it is. So I did that throughout the second year of my degree and all the way through my third year, eventually leaving and graduating, should I say. And then I actually was offered a job at Greater Sport. I applied for a job as a part-time club and volunteer development officer, and I got offered that job. On the same day, I got offered a job with the Commonwealth Games, which had been my thing. I wanted to work on the Commonwealth Games in Manchester, and probably one of the biggest first life choices I had to make actually as a youngster, in terms of, do I go with this exciting event and the Commonwealth Games and everything I dreamt of, or do I go with a company that had really nurtured me and developed me and I could see a real future with? So I chose to work with Greater Sport, and it was amazing. And several years later, I became the CEO of Greater Sport. It was probably one of the proudest moments of my life, actually. I was so happy. I put so much into it. And what's really amazing about the charity is the focus on increasing people's participation and really driving people to be active, not only for their physical health, but mental health. And with that comes, I guess, a whole host of things that you might not realise, but we've seen certainly through the pandemic in terms of inequalities. Now, this is something that has existed in our society for a very long time, but actually, from a sport and participation point of view, it's really there. So a lot of the work that we did at Greater Sport was around trying to increase participation from underrepresented groups, which of course includes women. Women are half of the population, and yet women and girls do not participate as much in sport and physical activity as their male counterparts. And in fact, that drops off at a really early age, a primary school age. So if we can kind of encourage and engage young girls in keeping active because it's a fun thing to do and it's social and it's good for you and you feel better for it at that early age, we've got an awful job to do to try and capture people further down the line. Because what actually happens is we start here and it's fairly level, and then it just drops and it drops and it drops, and sadly it drops all over the place. So it's not just participation, it's in coaching roles, it's in volunteering, it's in the boardroom, it's in senior management positions. So there's a real challenge for the industry, and it has been recognised, and there's been a number of things done to try and drive that participation at all levels, but there's still an awfully long sort of way to go. So that was a real education for me in terms of Greater Sport, of seeing how that comes around, and obviously other groups as well. People with a disability participate less, people from Black and ethnic minority communities participate less, people from lower socioeconomic groups participate less. And actually the real challenge around that is the inequalities in terms of their life expectancy and healthy life expectancy. So there was a time, and it's probably changed a bit now, but it might not have. when I was at Greater Sport, and there was a ward in Trafford and there was a ward in Rochdale, and the healthy life expectancy for an adult male was 12 years difference.
Gosh,
and when you think about where Trafford is and where Rochdale is, it's not that far away.
yeah.
And yet you can be expected to live 12 years longer in better quality of life if you just happen to live, 40 minutes up the road. It's terrible. So there's an awful lot of work to do there. But yeah, an incredible charity, still doing absolutely amazing things. And, it's something I'll always hold very dear to me. Alongside that, I guess, as a female and being quite career driven, really, I also took on a number of kind of non-executive director roles or trustee roles in other organisations, because I was very conscious my knowledge and learning, whilst Greater Sport is a partnership organisation, quite outward facing, it still was within that one organisation. So, and I've continued to do that, really. The majority of those things have been things where they've been connected to sport or health. I think where you're taking on voluntary positions in particular, super important that you do it in something that you care about and you've got a passion for. Otherwise, it can really become a labour that you don't want. So I've done that, and currently I chair the Class of 92's charity, which is Foundation 92. Really new charity, so it's been really interesting to go from running an established organisation, with everything in place, to literally starting a brand new charity as a board, and kind of the work that Tom and the team have done there over lockdown, considering he started as we went into lockdown as our first head of the foundation. It's been phenomenal, food parks, befriending service, to support isolation and loneliness, just incredible. And recruiting a team has been brilliant, something I'm very proud of. And then I'm involved in a couple of other organisations as well. One is around sports policy. It's like a conferencing company called Why Sports. So we've been tackling some really interesting things. I've never done a webinar before lockdown. I've posted a number of them now, and actually they're all recorded. So if people wanted to look back, we did one recently around children's mental health and physical activity and how that relates, and that was really interesting. Some very interesting stuff on social media. We've actually got one coming up in September around women in sport, and it's touching all aspects of that, including kind of life cycle changes, the menopause, and how that affects your training or your kind of mental thoughts around being active and healthy. So and I guess the other thing that I've done in my career, and then I'll stop because I'm conscious that I talk an awful lot, a lot of speaking actually at different events around gender equality in sport, because it's something I'm very passionate about. And there are sort of two schools of thought, or like advocates, people who can support women. I've been very fortunate, to have a lot of great females and male role models around me. And I've never really had, I wouldn't say, doors shut that I weren't able to open. But not, it's not the same for everybody. So I also do quite a lot of mentoring, and I'm an executive coach. Not just for females, males as well, but actually it's really important to be able to kind of, I guess for me anyway, personally, have a purpose and make sure that I can bring some of my experiences to support other people, particularly women, into things they didn't even dream was possible. So.
Yeah, wow, that sounds amazing. I've had so many things over the years, and it's great. I bet you're very busy.
Yeah, I have been. One of the exciting things I did when I left Greater Sport, I went to work for the Class of 92 actually, and I was working across a number of their businesses that were connected to sort of sport and education. And they set up a brand new higher education institution in Old Trafford actually.
Yeah.
Excuse me, not too far from Hotel Football and Football Club. It's right opposite Lancashire Cricket Club. And that's a really exciting thing to have worked on, because their ethos, again, when we think about kind of women in sport and reducing inequalities in that space, they're really trying to open up the doors to access higher education and really kind of bust the myths around social mobility, and that it's for everybody, a very different style of learning, with some real kind of underpinning kind of principles that the Class of 92 brought to the fore, which are very relevant because they come from sport, which is teamwork, being self-aware, being a good communicator, all the things that you need to be a well-rounded individual. Sometimes it's underestimated how much of that you get from sport, as well as working in sport. I've played it my whole life, and And, you know, I dip in and out now. I used to play netball an awful lot and I loved it. But, you know, you have a family and you've got to make priorities. Now I'm busy bringing them to football and dancing and, you know, here, there and everywhere. So I would train more things on my own, like in the gym, or, you know, things I can kind of dip in and out of, go for a run. But yeah, the ethos of UA92 and what that's going to do, you know, when I think next year will be the first graduates coming through, which is insane.
Yeah, that's amazing.
3 years, but these principles of sport and people being active, it's not just important for people's health and their mental health, actually the life skills it brings, you know, a next level. Really, you can't really get those kind of skills
Yeah, sure.
in such a, you know, switch the tap on and they're just there for you to absorb way.
Yeah, no, that's great. Before we sort of move on to, you've got a new venture
Yeah.
you've set up a couple of months ago. How would you say that, what kind of things do you think organisations can do to encourage more women to get into sport, like starting at, you know, you mentioned before about a young age. How can we, and also other groups as well, from your experience, how can we encourage more women to get involved?
Yeah, I think the key thing, and there's a lot of insight that's come out of Sport England around people actually getting engaged in activity, is maybe we drop the word sport, or maybe we broaden that. And you'll have seen that, you know, if you're around sort of national stuff around sport, you know, yes, there is sport for sport's sake and elite sport, and we've just seen the Olympics and it was amazing, and well done to the women, by the way, because they were
Did
absolutely
amazing.
awesome.
Yeah.
You know, everybody that's been there and medalled, and we've seen, you know, Katarina Johnson-Thompson, you know, she was crossing that line and she was doing it herself. You know, that's the grit, that's the resilience that I'm sort of talking about. But yeah, in terms of kind of engaging more people, it's about finding something that's relevant for them. So, you know, if you were to look at young girls as an example, they might look up to somebody like Kat and go, I want to be like them, and that's amazing. If you were to look at probably in you know, a late teen or early 20s, you know, that's not attainable for most people. So actually that, you know, if we just put our Olympians and Paralympians everywhere and assume that that's going to motivate everybody, it will for a certain small proportion, but it won't for everybody. But it lifts us all because we feel proud to be British. So it's actually about finding role models that are relevant. And you might have seen This Girl Can campaign with Sport England.
Yeah,
you know, normal people who look like me, who sound like me. And that's why the diversity agenda is so important, because, you know, you could say, well, you know, I'm in my early 40s, I've got 3 children. And so you could put me on something and go, oh, there you go, ladies. But we all look different. So not everybody looks like me. So that wouldn't be right. So it's about encouraging organisations to make sure we represent the communities that we serve and show a range of images. But equally, from an employer point of view, you know, when I was CEO of Great Sport, we gave people time during the week to exercise on our time, because if we're there about making people healthier, well, we should be giving some time to our staff to go and do that and to sort of practice what we preach. And it's only an hour a week. But you know what? That's an hour a week where they're working, but they're being active. And it, you know, there's lots of little things that you can do to sort of encourage people along that route. And I guess part of the work that I'm doing at Stryve is about, okay, my main knowledge, I guess, comes from, you know, sport, and I'm helping a professional sports club write a strategy. I'm helping another one set up their own charity. I'm doing some exec coaching with all sorts of different people and organizations, which is fantastic. But also this notion of how to help businesses with their kind of environmental, social and governance strategies, because there are lots of businesses out there who want to do like amazing things. They're not quite sure how to go about it, because if you think about it, the people that have maybe been recruited in at the top haven't necessarily been recruited for their expertise in giving back and embedding in the community and showing that you care. They've often been brought in to create shareholder value, or, you know, like to really kind of turn a business around. And I think the pandemic has really highlighted for everybody, you know, this notion that you need to have a soul as a business. And if you don't, that's okay, and that can be a choice that you make. But if you make that, do so at your peril, because people will support businesses with a purpose and that seem to care and actually do, don't just say it, in good times and bad. And if you don't have that connection with your customers, with your shareholders, with whomever, your community, then when things get bad, people kind of go, you know, if you look at companies who've maybe not been paid or this, that, and the other, which is horrific, by the way, but if you really value a relationship you have with the business because it gives you value back, you're more likely to put them at the top of the list of the people that you need to pay when you've got no, can't really, you know, so it's that sort of thing. And I just think there's such an opportunity for businesses to take a step forward in this space. If we think, you know, if we go back to sport and we think, you know, the famous quote from Nelson Mandela around sport has the power to change the world, you know, it genuinely does. And I think when you think about social justice, we've seen it with Marcus Rashford and, you know, this amazing sort of quest and everyone getting behind him, because why in this day and age in our country are young people not able to eat? I mean, it's desperately sad. So, you know, he's really gone on for that. And, you know, I've got such respect for him. And then at the same time, you know, the climate emergency, you know, sport can be used for good. So if we take, I don't know, if we take climate change and what sport could do, arguably you might go, well, sport's about hitting balls, kicking balls, you know, batting balls, whatever. But actually, sporting organisations have got an opportunity here to step forward in terms of the climate crisis and go, there's something that we can do. So number one, there's lots of different accreditations out there. So I'm working with a company called Planet Mark, who are amazing. I've done an awful lot of research in this space because like I care about it and I want to know if I'm going to work with an organisation, it's the best one. What's really great about them is they validate the evidence that you provide. So if you want to get a certification around your carbon footprint and you want to improve that year on year, not all organisations validate that data, which I find mind-blowing actually, and particularly for yourselves in the legal industry, like it's so regulated. How is that even? But anyway, it is. So organisations can kind of put themselves through this process to see where they are now, but more importantly, where they can get to. And then they can start to talk about that in the narrative. Why are they doing that? Who's involved? Get the staff involved. They can talk about that. The other side of it from sports organisations is the ability to educate people. We've seen it around Black Lives Matter. We've seen it with a whole range of different things. And actually, sport has a powerful voice, and a voice that actually most of the population would listen to in some way, shape or form. So use that and get fans and sponsors and people that are playing the game to understand a little bit more. You know, if you think about carbon footprint and, you know, being carbon neutral and net zero and all of these terms, people are, I don't really understand it. But if you think about on an individual level, what can I do to improve? Well, you know, instead of going buying 20 bottles of water, have a bottle, refill it. Like that's on a very basic level, that makes a difference. So there's lots of things that sports organisations can talk about in that sense, big issues that can really make a difference. The other side of it is, and this will be a really difficult one for some sporting organisations, like sponsorship. Who are your sponsors and how do you get that balance? You know, because if you've got an airline sponsoring you, that's quite difficult when you're talking about, you know, the environment, because we know that that's a really damaging factor to the environment. But what else can be done, or what are you doing with that organisation to, you know, really bring this agenda to the fore and put different things in place? And supply chains as well, where are you buying your stuff from? Can you buy more locally? Can you source more locally? And we see a lot of that with small businesses. Manchester City are actually really good at that. They really do have a very strong kind of policy around employing local people, trying to source materials locally, and they're probably one to watch in that space as well. The other side of that then is, I guess, the social responsibility side, which again is something I'm very, very passionate about because of kind of, I guess, who I am, where I've grown up, what I've seen around me, and also the people we've tried to help when working at Greater Sport. So, you know, if you're thinking from an employer point of view, what can I do around that? Well, do you care and do you show you care your employees about their health and well-being? you know, are you just piling on and piling on and piling on this work, or are you actually acknowledging where people are at and making sure that there are opportunities to, you know, encourage people to not eat their lunch at the desk? Like, don't get me wrong, we have all done it, but actually go for a walk, have a walking meeting, get outside. You know, those kinds of things, they're not massive things, but they do make a big difference to how you feel valued in your organisation, and, you know, the loyalty that you might bring back. And I've spoken to so many people over the pandemic around how their employees have treated them amazingly and how they haven't. And, you know, I think as individuals, don't get me wrong, there'll always be a point where you need a job and you've just got to take one.
Yeah.
Where you've got an element of choice, people will be looking to organisations that show that they care about the people who work for them and deliver their message. You know, and we've seen it, and we're going to see it more and more. And when we think about kind of millennials and them coming through the workforce, they're making up more of the workforce. They care. They're more vocal about these matters than any generation really that's gone before. So it's going to be, you know, at their peril, companies do not listen to this sort of stuff. But, you know, aside from that as well, like, people, planet, profit, they can work in tandem, and actually they all support each other. So this conversation moving into a boardroom conversation and really being taken very seriously is where it's going for me. And, you know, that's something that Stryve is very keen to support organisations in that agenda.
So you obviously, you know, set up business, was it earlier this year?
Yeah, I launched, I think I told the world in January. I set it up a little bit before, but it's quite a big deal to kind of come out of a good job and, you know, a career where you've only ever been employed and set up on your own. So, you know, I won't lie, like, it was a lot to process in my mind, even though that was my choice and I was really excited about it. It's terrifying as well, because it's like I've gone back to school, you know, learning everything. And I wanted to do it myself. I didn't want to go and get an accountant to set up my business for me. I wanted to know how to do it. So yeah, it's been.
I was going to ask, actually, because obviously you've been, you know, you've had an amazing career set today, and obviously setting up a business. Is there kind of, have there been challenges that you faced along the way at other organisations as well? Have you got any tips for budding entrepreneurs?
Well,
women going into the industry.
Don't give up, be resilient, all that jazz. Yeah. I think, you know what, it has been really interesting. One of the biggest things for me has been around, you know, working at home. I don't think I've probably chosen the easiest time to set up a business and change my entire life, really. But I've done it, so it's kind of like, you know, I'm still standing, or I'm sitting now, but, you know, I am still standing just so. Yeah, I think when I'm quite a sociable person, so for me, you know, certainly probably post-school holidays when I can resume to a more business like routine, if you like. I won't be working from home all the time. You know, I'll spend a couple of days here, but, you know, I'm very fortunate. I've got an office in Manchester that I can use where I used to work, and they've been brilliant. So, you know, just to be in and around people. So I think if you're setting up on your own, think about where you work best, and don't cut yourself off, because that can be quite isolating. And obviously it's been exacerbated massively by the pandemic, and we're not allowed to see anyone or do anything, and, you know, all of that. So that's been challenging. I just think surround yourself with incredible people. That is so important. Like, I have a WhatsApp group. It's cheesy, but it's the PMA, and we're obviously 2021, so it changes at various points. But that group actually is filled with women who are insane and motivate me every day. You know, from talent managers, production managers, presenters, teachers, like, you name it. There's a couple of people who've got their own businesses in there. People very senior in you know, professional sport as well. Everyone's kind of got a bit of a sport vibe going on, and it's wonderful, because, you know, if you've got a big presentation or a big meeting, or you're just feeling it, you just like, oh, I can't do this. All you have to do is just put this little snippet of something into that group, and then it's just, you know, this energy and, you know, the belief in that group that you know, of course you can set up your own business, Yvonne, and of course you can do this, and of course you can do that. And for somebody else, of course you can smash that for me, and it doesn't matter whether it's with, you know, the most high up person I've ever heard of in me, and it's like, you've got it. Like, it's just, so surround yourself with great people, and in particular as well, I'm not just talking other females. You know, I've had some brilliant male role models around me, you know, notwithstanding my family and the support that I have here. From a career point of view, my previous chairman, Chris Brindley, was, you know, incredible, and I still to this day, you know, chat with him regularly. Gary Neville has been amazing, an incredible boss, and continues to be somebody who, you know, I can go to and I can talk to. And obviously I'm still involved in the charity, and that's great. But, you know, men that champion women, and men that, you know, absolutely do everything they can to kind of empower you and sort of drive you on. We need more of that. You know, when I think back to you know, rooms where I'll speak at conferences, particularly where, or evenings where it's, you know, about women being on boards, or it's about you know, women in sport, you're often talking to a room full of women. And don't get me wrong, I love nothing more than that, but we'll see that there's been a shift when that room is filled with men.
Yeah,
you know, because we sort of get it, because we are one and we experience it, and there's been many hurdles I've had to overcome, and, you know, I'm sure I've had to work a lot harder than some of my male counterparts, let's put it like that. Particularly as well when you think, you know, technically, you know, I've got 3 children. I had 3 children under the age of 4. You know, that's a fair bit of time you're taking out of a career at probably quite an important time in terms of your sort of progression and sort of how you move through a company. I did a master's at the same time as, you know, I just got my CEO job, and I remember my husband going, don't do it. And I came home and I was like, I'm slagged up, I'm so sorry. You know, and it was horrific, because, you know, when did I find the time to study? Probably between 10:30 at night and 2 o'clock in the morning. Like, that's how I did it. But I did it, you know, so it's that sort of, you just got to have the grit and the determination, but surround yourself with people who are gonna, you know, champion you and find that inner voice. You know, one of the biggest challenges for me moving out of my jobs and into my own is, you know, I can sell snow to the Eskimos. I don't have an issue with that. And when I'm championing a company or a cause, UA92, Greater Sport, Y Sports, whomever, no problem. When it's my company and I'm championing me, I guess, that's a very different, approach. And I'm somebody who wants to do a brilliant job, and when I've done it, I'll talk about it. So I've got some really interesting, amazing projects on the go right now, but I haven't told anybody about them because I haven't finished them yet. And, you know, it probably is a bit about, I am a little bit, I remember somebody once told me I was a control freak and a perfectionist, and I was mortified. I mean, I was disgusted. But when I sort of came away and kind of got over myself, I was like, probably quite right, actually. You know, I want something to be how it needs to be. So soon enough, I will start to tell people, oh, I've done this, and it's amazing, I've done that. And, you know, but more importantly, my customers will start to tell people that I've done those things. And that's kind of where I want to be. So but that whole, you know, to win business and to get new clients, you need to be talking about things and showing the difference that you're making. But I don't want to do that until I kind of feel like, you know, that's cool. So there's that balance, really. But yeah, it's been such a learn. But there's so, you know, there's loads of great stuff. So for women who are interested in careers in sport, interested in non-execs, or to become a trustee or something like that, there's a lot of information that's out there. Sport England has an awful lot on their website of insight around why people do and don't participate at grassroots level, not at elite level. And, you know, there's people like me who've worked in the industry who are always happy to talk to people. You know, if people ask, can I have half an hour of your time? Yeah, of course. You know, I need to find when, but yes, because why wouldn't we want to help somebody else be able to achieve, you know, their potential and what they want? So yeah,
that's amazing.
A learning curve, this whole new business malarkey, and I'm still learning. I dread the end of the financial year and what I'm meant to do then.
Oh gosh, I can imagine. But yeah, like you say, that kind of mentorship is so important, isn't it, to try and encourage people to get into, you know, the industry.
And maybe have a couple. Maybe it isn't necessarily. I go to different people for different things. So I think it is about knowing, you know, one of the biggest things for me is understand yourself, know what you're good at, know where your weaknesses are, and know that actually, you know, people sometimes just focus on the weaknesses, and that, you know, yes, it's important to improve those things, but actually, if you focus on improving some of the stuff you're good at, you could be really amazing at that, and it would really stand you out from the crowd. So just, you know, try and be who you are. I remember as a younger lady, you know, most of the rooms I went into were full of men. None of them looked like me. I used to sit there thinking, oh, I really want to say this, I really want to say this, but I don't want to say this. And then someone else would say it, and I would be like, oh, that's such an amazing idea.
Yeah, exactly.
I hadn't found my voice. And, you know, that all comes with experience. And, you know, just because somebody acts like that doesn't mean you have to act like just be who you are. And get the support around you from different people.
That's amazing. Very inspirational. Thank you. Well, we've just we've not got long left, actually. I could obviously sit here all day chatting, but as we've done with previous interviewees, we have a quick fire round at the end, and then but no, thank you so much for taking the time. I know you're busy, but great to hear about your career and the tips you can give to those trying to access the industry. And also more about the kind of ESG side of things. So thank you. We'll just finish on these then. Good light-hearted entertainment. So wine or gin?
Ooh, gin. But it has to be flavoured.
Yeah. Going out or staying in? Difficult one over last year, but
do you know what? I'm on a fence. I like to go out, but then I need to stay in a lot before I can go out again.
Staycation or abroad?
Abroad.
Yeah, agree. Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Yeah. Where's your favourite city in the world? Yes, of course.
Has to be.
Has to be. And finally, what song gets you on the dance floor?
Oh.
Difficult one.
Oh my gosh, it is. But I'm going to go with an absolute classic, which would be Baby D, Let Me Be Your Fantasy. I'm going back to the old school.
In the nightclubs.
A very long time ago.
Oh, great. Well, thank you again. Thank you so much. For those kind of watching, please do. We've got this video will be available on our social media channels, but also get in touch with us if you'd like to hear more about our Equaliser package. So thanks very much, Yvonne.
No, thank you, and thank you for bringing the agenda to the fore. I think it's amazing.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.